What if everything you've worked so hard to become is also the very thing that's quietly burning you out? Because for so many high achievers, success isn't the problem, it's the identity we build around it. And when that identity cracks through burnout, loss, or life simply saying enough, we're left asking a question most of us were never taught to answer. Who am I without all of this? Today's conversation isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more aligned with your energy, your truth, and the life you're actually meant to live. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to be better versions of ourselves and have a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. Today, I am speaking with Janine Mathó. Janine is a former Harvard and Pearson executive, award-winning leader in global learning, and trusted advisor to changemakers navigating growth and transition. Over her 25-year career, Janine raised $30 million for education innovation across sectors. Her turning point came in 2020 after corporate burnout and the sudden loss of her mother, a season that led her to reimagine her life, work, and success. Janine now works at the intersection of leadership, well-being, and transformation, helping ambitious professionals reclaim energy, align with what matters, and build sustainable success. Her new debut book is Live Your Opus, which helps high achievers who look successful on the outside but feel depleted or misaligned. A first-generation Cuban American, Janine has lived in 3 continents and led work on 4 continents. She brings a cross-cultural lens and rare integration of strategy, science, and spirit to her work. She is coming to us from Provence, where she lives with her husband and 2 labs, and travels often to London and Boston, where they raise their 3 grown children. Janine, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dan. It's nice to be here.
You have had a journey. And it's a journey I'm looking forward to you sharing with our community. The pivot was burnout, but as all stories go, there's a reason we burn out, and there's often some parts of who we are, our upbringing, our way of being in the world, our way of thinking we need to be in the world a certain way, and the process of ultimately waking up through an experience that in many ways levels us. So what would be a good place to start in your story?
You've recapped it a bit. I think the place to start is, I think my story is not that unique, actually. I think there's so many people like me right now who, they went to school, they did as well as they could. They went to university, did as well as they could. They got their jobs, did as well as they could, looked for the promotion, sort of bought into the model of success that most of us were raised with. And for me, I took achievement incredibly seriously. I was raised to take it seriously, and I was good at it. And I think what I didn't know was, I always figured stress was part of the job because it just was as an exec. And what I didn't know is that I actually had a limit on that. Mm-hmm. And it turns out I did. And it turns out that I was lacking so many tools that exist in the world that we just don't teach people in school. We don't teach them in high school or in university or in leadership development. And so for me, it's a bigger picture now, even just beyond the book, of course, which is just that we're preparing people to succeed at every stage for a world that doesn't exist anymore. And I was one of those people. And I actually feel really fortunate that I went through the experience that I did because I'm in a much healthier place. But man, I don't wish that on anybody.
No.
And so for me, the goal for me now is to focus on how can we help educate and develop humans differently for this world, because we're not doing it yet.
I'm so aligned. Yes, I so agree. So aligned. There's this double-edged sword of having high capacity and high achievement orientation. And I'm I'm remembering a former client of mine who was both of those things, and would cyclically go through some burnout that would lead him to take a couple weeks off and get some intensive support. And what he would slowly came to was the idea that he's always taking on more and saying yes because he knows he can fix or help or create or build. And he could, like, legitimately, he could. Um, and it's one of those situations where what I have come to talk about with clients about, which is it's kind of like being a superhero. And the thing is, just because you have the ability, the difference is you don't always need to use it because we ultimately crash.
Yeah.
And all of this is to reflect back to your experience, which is you had this because in college you were working 50 hours a week
Yeah.
and graduating with high marks and honors. So right away, of course, like this is just how it is, right? You are actually that was your training ground for corporate America, right? Like that, like here we go. This is the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I took that. My parents divorced while I was in university, and I was just over the edge of sort of being included in the financial discussions. So I wasn't, and that hopefully doesn't happen as much anymore. But it did happen to me, and so I decided I wanted to stay in school. And the only thing I knew how to do was work. I'd had a job since I was 14, but part time in summers and things like that. And I thought, well, if I can manage the financial aid and I can stay in, then I can finish. But I mean, I got used to that. And I took that right with me, right into the world of work. Because, of course, there wasn't really a space to breathe between finishing university and starting work because I needed to provide for myself. So that sense of I need to earn, I need to provide was the first impetus. But then that stays with you because when is enough, really?
Mhm.
Like, at what point are you making enough? At what point do you need to say, I do want to make more. I want the next promotion. I want the, and I know it never occurred to me it was never enough.
It was never enough. No. Um, my experience was, with graduate school after college, the metrics were still there. Like this, like in a sense, the security of the milestones, right? It extends that reality. And then you get out and it's like, okay, now what should I achieve now? Oh, it's licensure. Okay, now it's this position. Oh, now it's a higher position. Oh, now it's like a director. Oh, and then maybe it just, to your point, it doesn't end. And you said like, what's enough? Which goes to then the larger question of, am I enough? Right, and having to decouple this notion that so many of us achievers have not thought about, or maybe it's very subconscious, unconscious, which is I'm achieving for external feedback
Yeah.
to validate my enoughness.
And we don't know that.
No.
That is what we think we're doing. We think we're making conscious choices. I wanted to comment on the sort of that latter approach that you just described. I get this job and then that job and the next job. I mean, the thing is that in our generation, it doesn't end, but actually the world has changed, and that doesn't work so well anymore. That ladder doesn't work so well anymore, which is one of the reasons why it's going to be even scarier, actually.
Hmm. Right.
Right?
Right.
Even
But
scarier.
yeah, it doesn't. A plus B plus C equals whatever the formula is. It doesn't hold up anymore, right? You do. People are finding they do all the right things, and there's not the prize at the end, or all of a sudden the prize is taken away from them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's scary. And
And if
It's
you
yeah.
if you're working for the external reward, even if you don't know you are, and it's taken away, it's very scary.
Mhm,
Because then all of a
mhm.
sudden you think, I mean, at least for me, it was taken away because I think the universe probably tried to tap my shoulder several times and I'm sure I didn't notice. So it just had to say, tag, you're out, that's it. Um, but, okay, I'm out and I'm supposed to be healing. What does
Right.
that mean? And now what do I do with this time? And what am I healing full time? Who am I without an affiliation? What do I do with my days when I'm not busy working, quote unquote, right? When I'm not earning, when
Yeah,
I'm not when I don't have the status, when I don't,
yeah.
it's totally a frightening time.
So
And
frightening.
it's
A To make this point, a recent guest, Dr. Durga, a, eye surgeon, so her very, successful eye surgeon in her mid-60s identity, and, she falls on the ice on her back porch and breaks her surgical hand as she is writing a book as writing a book that she doesn't have time for, about, from eyesight to insight. That's not the title, but that's sort of the and she's describing this too, this scariness after all these years of this is who I am. And that was her two by four. I was saying, like you say, like we get the taps, but most of the time high achievers rarely, unfortunately, there's usually a two by four. Fortunately or unfortunately, right? It's like, and so that was hers. And yours with the loss of your mom 2020, and I was wondering, given that time frame, did COVID have anything to do with that, or that was just the timing of it all?
I think I was just about 3 months ahead of everybody else.
Okay.
So, no, COVID didn't have anything to do with it. I
Yeah.
mean, this what you're talking about, this identity, right? Who
Yeah.
I am. I think this is one of the fundamental pieces missing in terms of what we don't teach children. And I'll start with children, but we don't really cover it. It's not in any state standards. It's not part of a curriculum unless you're in a very special kind of school to figure out to be able to graduate and have a really good sense of who you are. And I think that's part of what needs to change because if it's attached to all of the external measures, if that definition of who you are is attached to the affiliations, to the titles, to the paycheck, to all of it, and when it goes away, whether it's because of burnout, whether it's because something happens in your life or you lose your job or AI comes or whatever it is, right? You know, it's it's a really hard process to go through to then figure out, okay, who am I?
Who am I? Why am I here?
Yeah.
What's the point of all this, right? Some really big existential questions that, as we talk about them now, they're existential and intellectual. But when we're going through this, they can be very, they are very scary, with so much uncertainty. And it's like you lose your railing. Like you don't like where the railing, where are my guideposts? At least that has been my experience.
Yeah.
And how did you start finding your way back?
With help, first of all. So, bereavement counseling was very helpful, and um, that brought up family trauma from childhood, which I had sort of walled away. So, handling that through the therapy also helped. Coaching helped. But I think, when I first came to the end of my initial part of my medical leave, which was also, by the way, very unique because I was living in the UK at the time and I was able to be signed off from work for mental health for a few months. And that's very unusual, also. And that was a huge privilege, actually, and have the supports in place to do that. But I think as soon as I started to think about going back, I thought, how am I going to go back? I'm just going to do it again. Like, I don't know what else to do. And at that point, COVID was just about at the beginning and everything was crazy. And I thought, I honestly don't have any new strategies. And so I was trying to figure out how is it that ambitious people can live healthy, meaningful lives with success that sustains itself without losing themselves or what matters most. And that sent me on a bit of a quest, which honestly I'm so thankful for because at the time I didn't really feel like I had a purpose, right? But that
Hmm.
question was initially for me. And I started to just, I mean, I read a lot, but I also started to interview people and talk to people about their own paths of reinvention and career pivots and burnout and, you know, medical illness and coming back and all of the sort of life changes and transitions that you might imagine. And I just started interviewing people because it's my sort of academic roots showing, right? And I think they really helped me find my way back. I think I realized from there that there wasn't a path that I could follow yet, hence why I wrote the book eventually. I needed a path and I want
Hmm.
others to have one. There was a lot of exploring. There was a lot of, I did a wine course. There was, I did a little
Hmm.
startup. Like there was lots of sort of experimentation and trying new things. Um, but it was very difficult all of that time because my confidence was attached to who I was before.
Hmm.
And so all of this and even still today, right? If there are times when folks all around me who have jobs, like, what do you do? So, and it's just easier. It's easier for most people to picture it in a job. But if we think about where the
Hmm.
world is going, more and more of us are going to be not with a specific job and doing something more entrepreneurial. So
Hmm.
I think it's a good experience. But for me, it was a very slow process learning how to um, learning about things like, well, for example, energy, which I actually started to learn about by spending time in Provence. So we happened to close on our house here around the same time that I went on a medical leave and I came here and I was the first time it was quiet, and I was finding calmness and stillness and I could sit in the quiet and people here value that. They really value the stillness, the quiet. They value the connection throughout the village. Saying, I always joke, you have to say hello to everyone on your way to the boulangerie or to wherever you're going. But you don't walk by someone without saying hello, even if it's just to say hello and you don't know who they are. And so just I started to learn about energy. I started to learn about connection at first, really informally, and then more formally.
Hmm. So important. And I'm imagining the juxtaposition of, let's say, London or Boston, and then, as you told me before the show, a 12th century village in Provence, right? Like the quiet. When I find myself in places like that, it's so quiet. I feel I can hear the quiet. It's this bizarre feeling, and
That's
it does connect you. It connects us with other things. And I think when there's all the noise and all the stress, and whether it's the computers, the email, the phones, the meetings, the traffic, the sirens, we all have the ability to read and connect with the energy, but there's so much distraction from it
yeah.
that many of us don't even believe we have that is actually a thing, and
Yes.
that we actually have the ability to. And my experience personally and with clients is like it opens up a whole other type of capacity that is lying dormant, like waiting for us to use and interact with.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said, and I think, it's connection with nature, which you can get if you spend time just sitting in grass somewhere or, it's connection just with everything around you. As you said, you can hear. And I think, for I had a privilege for that, and I think part of why I wanted to write the book is because I know that that's unusual. And you shouldn't have to move someplace like this to be able to find it. And so I've sort of pressure tested myself. Can I find this energy and this peace and this way that I am now and this way of being
The
when I'm
Opus way.
in yeah, when I'm in Mumbai, when I'm in Delhi, when I'm in London, can I find that? And the answer is yes, but with training. And for me, that's part of why the book is complicated layers of things, some people would
Hmm.
say, but really trying to provide a pathway. Um,
It does provide a pathway, and that something I was thinking about while reading it, and I am grateful I get to ask, is it is laid out. I'm going to use the word sequentially. It's very action oriented. It tells people how, it leads you through, and as someone who's worked on these sorts of works, I'm wondering, is that how it started out? I'm always so interested in the development of a piece of work as you are evolving, and of course the interaction with the editors. So what was it? What did you think it was going to be, and how close or different is it in the end result?
So the 12 weeks, so the book is laid out in 12 weeks, and there are 4 stages, and that was deliberate. That came through programs that I taught, and that did not change. That was 100% planned.
Mm-hmm.
And in part, I was inspired by, so when I was recovering from burnout, someone pointed me to, it was actually in an interview that I was interviewing someone else about their experience, and they were a lawyer turned interior designer. And they referred me to Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, which is a very classic book. And I loved that book in the sense that it gave me 2 concrete practices, one that stuck more than the other. So morning pages, which many people will have heard of. And that was really helpful because at the time I was, morning pages in the beginning, excuse me, was a place to dump all the crazy thoughts that I was having about where I was in my life as I was recovering. But that book for me, so no one that I knew other than that person had ever seen that book. No one in my corporate context, just they hadn't heard of it. So, and it's a massively well-known book. And I think for me, what I loved about it was the structure that she tries to provide, a path, a journey for folks. And when I was about to teach the frameworks and the work that I have, the journey, putting together a journey, obviously, is my expertise is in learning. So I think about where is everyone and where do I want to take them, and what is the arc of learning going to look like across that transformation. And so the process came from there. What was different in the book than I expected, which came from the writing, not so much from the editors, was the Opus Way. So originally the book was just going to be the pathway, the 12 weeks. And actually partly through teaching and then getting some great feedback and interviewing folks 6 months after and then 1 year after, and then having distance and time and realizing, well, there's some things that people need to know going into this. So it would be helpful. And I shared the new tools with folks who'd been through the program, and they said, oh, this is a really helpful. So the first, the change continuum, which is a very easy tool, but it's just figuring out where you are when you get to the book. Were you just laid off?
Mm-hmm.
Is that why you picked up the book? Are you feeling really stressed and burnt out? Or you just have too many paths in front of you? You don't know which one you want to choose. Just figuring out where you are in terms of change or transformation, because of course, if you're picking up this kind of book, you want something.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to identify where you are, and it's not a judgment. It's more like, here's where I am right now, and how can I best support myself where I am? If you've just lost your job, maybe you picked up the book because you're like, oh, I have to find something new. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And maybe you didn't really want to lose that job. So maybe you're a hesitator and you just want to, figure out, well, fine, I'll read this book. But, how can you help yourself shift out of hesitator mode and actually begin to take the journey that you need to take to move into whatever the next place for you is following that job, for example.
Well, and there's many important messages in it, the book, and the one that you are speaking to right now is to start where you are. Just start where you are. And that's the point of this first exercise, is to figure out where you are. And it sounds so simple, and it's not. It's not at all. No. It's just so important for people. The famous quote comes up from time to time on the show, which is, you're never too old to become you're never too old to be who you could have become, right? Yeah. And so it's never too late. And I know that for many of us, we do feel that way. Like, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my and you lay out several people who at different later times in life than you would expect for someone to have a whole meaningful life and career, right? Yeah. It is really never too late to start where you are.
And where else can you start?
Right.
And yet we usually try not to. We're just like, oh, I don't want to be here. How fast can I get off this place?
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have to start where you are, and it does sound obvious. And it's also part of why the first stage is connect, because it's not just where you are, but who are you right now? What are the opuses you've built? What is the opus you are living in? What's worked, what hasn't? Because I think one of the huge things that's missing is connecting to yourself. And we talked a little bit about kind of waking up and saying, "Who am I?" I mean, that's part of it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
just being able to really hear
Yeah.
yourself and separate
Yeah.
out. And it seems easy to me now.
Yeah.
But when I say, "Oh, separate yourself from the thoughts that you have," if someone had told me that when I was in my corporate role 5, 6 years ago, I would have just said, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are my thoughts, right? So that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so really going through a process of really understanding who you are, even just a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's just, and then go from there.
It takes courage, right? So it takes courage because generally the ideas that got us to this point and the ways of being that got us to this point, they worked and we didn't have to question them. And then they stop working.
Yeah.
And and as we said, then like what do we do? And it brings me back to Mike's like mid-30s, maybe, um, which in hindsight was a burnout turned dealing with depression. But in
Mm.
hindsight, it was, started with the burnout, which often happens that way. And it was raining, as it is actually today. And I was at a stoplight in town, and there was a bumper sticker on the car in front of me. And it said, "If you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing." And so I was thinking about it, not feeling good. And I started to have like a mini panic because I was reflecting on, okay, what do I stand for? And I was so disconnected from myself. I couldn't come up with what I stood for. I was in a point where I was feeling like an imposter. I was being very self critical. Um, and ironically, that question, which haunted me, was what helped me find my way back because I really thought about, I know I stand for things. I know I've had a life to this point. I have this, my family, I have my friends. I've done this. I care about things. And I was working my way back and it helped. And I
Yeah.
know like you have questions to help people find this.
Yeah, there are a lot of exercises and questions in the book. I mean, just to go back to your prior question, and then I'll come back here. It's just, a lot of people ask me why I wrote I guess you'd call a reader focused book. So why didn't I not write an idea book, or why did I not write like the 6 steps to this, or whatever, whatever it is? And I think it's because it's not that easy. And what you just described is a small piece of the process.
Hmm.
Um, and it's that first is coming back to who you are, and then it's figuring out what you want. And for some people, they might know what they want, but if they don't know who they are, they're not going to get there. And so it is not the book isn't meant as a quick fix, but it is meant to say, let me take your hand and walk you through
Hmm.
and help you move from here to there. And it's going to be your own journey, because
Hmm.
I can't guarantee where you're going to go. Right? So, but I wish that I'd had that. I
Hmm.
really, and I think more and more we're going to need that, actually. And not everybody has access to a coach or to a therapist or
Right.
to Provence or to time. And I was so fortunate to be able
Hmm.
to have time and to have the
Yeah.
support, family support, to take that time.
Hmm. You've alluded to our time in history a few times now,
Mm.
and how things are changing in so many ways and so rapidly. I mean, in some ways, not, and in many other ways, yes. I mean, this has all been building and coming for a long time. And what you're helping me think about is, as you say, we need we need this. It's not going to look different. I mean, it's going to look different. And how do I say this? There's a lot of just societal programming that we all
Mhm.
grow up in, and there's for lots of different reasons, and it serves lots of different purposes. For us to change, and when I say us, the collective, the individual and the collective, to change from an externally motivated, focused validation system to an internal knowing, value, integrity, that is separated from what we do and what we accomplish is powerful and transformative, both at the individual and at the collective level.
Yes. So we're human, and meaning has often come from work. And actually, in all of the sort of meaningfulness indexes that are out there and studies, without work, people don't feel as much of a sense of meaning. So we do need purpose of some kind, quests, missions, work, whatever it is. We are going to need that. But I think what you describe is beautiful, and it is actually what I want to see change in the world. I kind of take in my mind every AI article I see or every future of work, and for me, I pivot that and think about what does that mean for what we need to learn as
Hmm.
humans,
Mhm.
and even Oprah's latest. She had a AI futurist on her podcast recently, and she was talking about how we're not going to have jobs in the same way. We're going to have to be able to know what our skills are and market them. And basically, everyone's an entrepreneur. And it's like that implications for education
Hmm.
and what we need to learn and how we have to develop is massive. And we're not there. There's that's not really built into most systems. And you probably don't know this, but I actually have a second book coming out.
Oh, I do not know this.
No,
Okay.
it's only just been announced,
Yeah.
and it will come out later this year, actually. And I wrote it right after Live Your Opus. It's a co-authored book, and it's called "Raising Humans for a World That's Already Arrived."
Mm.
And it has 6 shifts in it because just what you were talking about. I mean, how are we going to change as a society, as a collective, to move to this place, to sort of be developed to thrive in the world that we are creating? you know, that's a whole challenge and into itself. And part of that will start in the home and in our schools.
Ah, so many thoughts are going in my are going through right now. Okay, I'm looking forward to that future conversation. So I'm going to put that
Thank
right
you.
there. I'm excited
Thank
for
you.
your next book, and I love that
Thank you.
title.
Thank you.
Um, you talk about truths, and I'm going to read the truths so
Yeah.
everyone can
Go
hear
ahead.
them.
Yeah.
You are the sole composer of your life. You are your greatest work. Own it. Success is best when success and well being coexist. And the only constant is change. So, do these truths, how do we work with these truths to allow them to guide us?
Hmm. Thank you for sharing those. Um, and I want to say they're not just platitudes. I think sometimes people hear statements like that, and we're so used to scrolling past Instagram where we can read about, you mentioned before, Martha Stewart starting her career really late and building a whole empire, or some of these things that I've written, but actually, they're really important. You actually are your greatest work. You actually are the most important thing you're ever going to create is yourself and your life, and you get one of them. And I think, to me, of those truths, to try to answer your question, it's this notion that success and well-being can coexist, and that you don't have to lower your ambition to feel better. You've got to bring your energy up, right? It's not like it's always been like, I'm working and I'm successful, and yeah, I know I need to take care of myself too, right? It's sort of over there. It's like, oh yeah, and I need to watch what I eat, or I need to get to the gym, or I need to whatever. And that's not quite what I'm talking about. I'm saying let's bring it all together, because if whatever your ambition is, how are you going to fuel that?
Hmm.
And it's not just going to the gym and what you eat, but it's how you're stewarding your own energy, really how you're stewarding your relationships, right? And so for me, it's like, can we stop? There's I just feel like in the well-being space, it's often like slow down and pause. And if you had told someone like me back then to slow down and pause, I would have said, like, are you serious? And most leaders who are busy would say that. So, okay, yes, we do need to do some slowing down and some pausing in the service of bringing our energy up so that we can match it with our ambition, which is not to say drop your ambition. because it's too much for you. No, just how are you going to, there's a lot of tools that we can use to bring our energy up. And some of those include things like pacing. And pacing doesn't say your ambition needs to come down, but it might take you a little longer to get there than you might hope, right? You have to pace yourself, or you might not be able to sustain yourself to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's the knot in the book that I'm trying to get people to work with,
Mm-hmm.
which is whatever it is that you're after in your life, assuming that you have the skills and the traits and all of those things, that's great. Don't bring it down. Don't play small for no reason, but you have to power yourself. And to do that, you do have to put yourself first. You do have to focus on you. It's not a selfish thing.
Mm-hmm. No, it's necessary. It's necessary. How did you find personally in the shift from the usual and the more well-known performing to this other place? I mean, actually, you talk about the difference between performance and achievement, right? So, as one example, but if you could describe how the places feel different, it, like, my experience is striving, seeking, like it's like forcing, versus what I think is this other place that you're describing, where it comes from a much more grounded and different place.
That's a great way to talk about it. I mean, I think there are people who talk about how they put their armor on every day before they go to work. And that's for me that's part of striving.
Right.
That's like, I gotta go. I gotta like get in the ring. I'm gonna be sort of in battle.
Yeah. Battle. Right.
I gotta look good. I gotta sound good. I gotta sure. um and you're striving for many reasons. You're worried about what people might think. You're worried you might not do it well enough. You're worried you might not be in control enough. Whatever it is, you really want something to succeed. But the other is different. The other is working from a very grounded place and working from flow, and also working more from what's coming towards you as opposed to what you can force. I don't know if that's clear enough.
It is. Yeah, I think of it as being and it's focusing on our presence and groundedness, from this other place. And I know this other place very, very well. And like you said, it takes a lot of practice. And I am noticing when I'm in the old place or the former place, which is still very much a part of me,
Yeah.
to shift over. And another thing that I'm now, as I'm talking, it's like it's that shift from my head to my heart is one way of thinking about it. And I'm wondering, how do you experience it, and how I imagine you still, um, that other road is still very accessible to you. How do
Yeah.
you switch or notice and then
Yeah.
switch?
So it's just to clarify for people listening, I do, and even in the new book, call it sort of the shift from performance to presence. And it is from that striving place to functioning from a more grounded, emotionally present um, place where you are really well connected to yourself, really in tune with how you feel, really in tune with how others are receiving you, um, and where you're almost nurturing yourself, but not nurturing yourself. So, Linda Grattan, who wrote The 100-Year Life, I had a chance to hear her speak in November, and I think she's written an article about this since, where she talked about the tension between productivity and nurturing, and too much productivity is burnout, and too much nurturing is fragility, right? She said our job in this new world is to live that tension, not to solve for it. And I love that because it describes how I feel pretty much every day now. Because now that I understand how to nurture myself, how to come forward and operate in life from that grounded place of presence. But I still have, as you said, that programming from my whole life, which is like,
Yes.
go,
Yes.
go, go, strive, 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 succeed, succeed. And sure, external measures are still sitting in the background, even though they don't matter as much as they used to. They're there. I'm human, right? But I do feel like there's that tension, and I feel it all the time. And I feel like I'm on the tightrope. And, this week was an unusual week. I was taking a lot of calls with India and Malaysia in the mornings, and then doing the calls on the East Coast in the evenings, and getting my work done in between. And so, like there were days this week where I was working 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. and I didn't do my yoga. I didn't do my meditation. I didn't eat properly. My sleep was disturbed. Like I didn't connect with some of the people who I love to connect with during the week, and I just didn't look up as much. And I was very present,
Mm-hmm.
but I was sort of really on that tightrope. And because I needed to be fully present, and I'm not performative when I'm in those conversations, so I'm fully present, but it's really tiring
Yes.
if you're not actually powering it, right? And so, then yesterday was sort of a day where I was like, whew, wait a minute. And, I still have more things I want to get done, and I still have people I need to connect with. And it was
Yes.
actually my husband who was like, just go up to your yoga platform, do your thing. And like, I'll see you in an hour, and then I'm a different person afterwards.
Yes.
And it's not that
Yeah.
I'm saying don't work 10 to 10, right? That's not the issue. But to show up as well as I want to show up, and
Yeah.
be fully present with each of those people, it was massively depleting me because I wasn't putting anything into myself.
Totally. And it's so interesting. Like we get to this different place, which is the desired place, the more place in flow, the more place that feels aligned and authentic. And we still have the same um, vulnerabilities to getting burnt out in this new desired life. And right, like this other guest recently, Dr. Neha Sangwan, who her
Oh,
work
yeah.
is about burnout. Are you
Yeah.
familiar
That
with
was a
her?
great episode, and
Oh, thank you,
and
thank
I
you.
know her work.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful. So,
Yeah.
right. So she's saying here she is on her book tour from this like life's work, and she's getting burnt out, and she's talking about burnout. So it's like, it's just the
Yeah.
like, oh, it's like, we're never done, right? We're never done.
No, my book launched February 3rd, and for it was really, really hectic for 2 months. And people kept saying to me, "Don't forget to live your opus."
Yeah,
Like,
right.
okay, I
Yes.
got it. I know. I wrote the book.
It's such an important message though for all of us. It's that like, even if I love you talk about Gay Hendricks' work and about the upper
Mhm.
limit problems and zone of genius and like such great stuff. Every time we level up, the same thing is waiting for us.
Absolutely. And if you're an ambitious person, you're always raising the bar. It doesn't matter if you have a job or you're doing it in your own life. It doesn't. Maybe you're just like building stuff in your house. You're gonna keep raising the bar, and every
Yeah.
time you're back to being a beginner, and every time you are learning to walk that tightrope again. Absolutely.
Such an important message. And okay, beginner's mind, everyone. Like, so, right? This idea, this mindful Buddhist way of, or Zen way of beginner's mind, and the idea that how can we approach everything with curiosity and newness? Because it always is. I mean,
Yeah.
like it is, but we just have these human ways of categorizing and profiling and projecting,
Yeah.
future tripping. So,
Yes.
man, it's not easy being one of us.
No, but the beginner's mind and the nurturing curiosity is such a great way to nurture presence.
Hmm.
Right? All of that is helps you to stay grounded. It helps you to stay emotionally in tune.
All right, everyone, deep breath. I'm taking a deep breath. Let's do this. Do it together. Life is happening right here, right now. Period. How did this book, this and the journey of this book change you?
It really has, actually. I think there's two things. So in writing the book, and I had told you that the Opus Way part, so the beginning, the sort of pieces, some of the frameworks and tools that are in there to support people didn't exist before I was writing, and part of it was the energy piece. So it's not that I hadn't been paying attention to energy before then, but I don't think I'd fully committed. I was sort of playing with it. So now I am 100% into energy, and when I say that for the folks listening, I mean, how can we and how are you supporting your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy and harnessing that and using it for whatever it is that matters most to you? And are you doing that intentionally? And how can you use those? Those four areas at a minimum are like leverage points, right? I mean, if I'm talking to a high performer, I have to give them a reason, right? So it's like, it's a leverage point. Like it can help you do more is what sometimes I might say. But actually what it does is help you connect to yourself better so that you can do more of whatever it is that matters most to you. Connect with the people you love most, focus on work that you enjoy, travel, whatever it is. So energy was the first thing. And I'm now like religious about energy, and I'm as I talked about that tightrope, I really know when I'm not stewarding mine.
Mhm,
And I suffer quickly
mhm,
because my body's sort of like, "What are you doing? Don't you know the rules? I can
mhm.
do all that for you, but you got to do some stuff for me." Um, so there was that. There was that.
Respecting the energy.
Exactly. And then I think the second thing that shifted was, the question that had sort of propelled me was that quest that I talked about earlier, which is like how can ambitious people um, live healthy, meaningful lives and success that lasts without losing themselves or what matters most to them. And I feel like I now have some answers, but I also feel like I understand why we're not able to do that well in this world, right? So it's not our fault, actually. We weren't taught. So, I
Mhm.
mean, what are you supposed to have picked this all up along the way? I mean, I know as a high achiever, I thought I had, but
Right.
clearly I was proven wrong. So, and some people have said to me, "Oh, well, it's just a little stress. I just have a little stress. I'm kind of used to it. It's just this next month. It's just the next 2 months. It's just this quarter." And we do that. We rationalize.
Mhm.
But the truth is we're not built for this world, actually. We're not, and we need to be. And so for right now, that for a grown adult, that falls into our own hands. But I'm
Mhm.
really interested now in how to make some other change, systemic change, um, wherever I can.
Mm. Yeah, I'm imagining as I look out far left, is a intermediate school from where I sit and where my kids went. And I think about the electives. I think about the time. I think about the elementary school. I think about when social emotional learning, emotional intelligence in the '90s, like how all of a sudden you started to get some of this into the curriculum. First, maybe little electives or little like special days, and then all of a sudden it's part of some classrooms. And so I'm visioning and manifesting for you the Opus Way, infiltrating and being incorporated in curriculum. And as I say curriculum, I think we might even be developing a new word for
Yeah.
however the future humans are taught or what
Yeah.
constitutes that teaching.
Yeah. I mean, one of the so I've worked in education and learning my whole life, and one of the organizations that I'm a part of now is called Dreamtime Learning, and I'm their chief learning officer. And they are doing this, and that's why I was so excited to join. And my co-author of the book is the founder of Dreamtime, and
Mm.
they have brought the best of behavioral brain and behavioral science. They have brought entrepreneurial mindset. They have brought in growth mindset. They've brought habits of mind. They've brought kind of awareness and action on SDGs. They've brought all of this work into in the UK. It's globally, not in the US. It's called a Cambridge certified curriculum. So it's an accredited curriculum. So it meets standards, and plus it has all of that infused into it. And so I'm really interested. I joined because I'm very interested in seeing how we can change the trajectory of humans.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And so a change is happening. And even with titles like CLOs didn't used to exist, or chief people person didn't used to exist, or chief spirit officer, like things are changing, right? They're changing
Yeah.
based on the evolution of what's happened and of what's needed, new ways of thinking, new possibilities. And that's just what lights me up, is this the idea of these new possibilities unfolding, particularly being led by people who are on their own journeys, have had their own journeys, and are teaching with passion and purpose and from experience.
Yeah. And I think it was your prior guest, Neha Sangwan, who talked about working at the intersection of many disciplines. And that's, I think, the other shift. I think that this challenge that we're talking about here is going to take many different disciplines to solve. And so that's going to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
New solutions for how we live and
Right.
work, and
Yeah,
going to take a village, as they say.
it is. Lots of villages with lots of different thinking. As we're winding down, I want to, I think it'd be beneficial to highlight the notion of transition. And because we're all in transition, whether we know it or not, and it becomes very clear when we reach any of these places, from burnout or job dissatisfaction, or all of a sudden a major loss of a loved one or something in life that was not supposed to happen the way it happened. And I really like how you talk about transition as the space in between.
Mm.
And I do feel like for us to label it, it's still really uncomfortable, but it's important for people to know it's actually a state. It's a thing where we're not in this shore, we're not at that shore, we're in the middle, but it's the only place to be, going from one place to another.
Yeah, and I mean, I discovered William Bridges' work when I was going through my own recovery and understanding, oh, I'm actually in transition, and I actually what I had gone through was appropriate, because I was actually grieving who I was,
Hmm.
because we don't really usually honor the end. It's like if you get the new job, you don't think about the old job. You're like, oh, got the new job, and you move, or I'm moving to a new city or a new house or whatever. But actually, there's this grieving process of the old self, or the old place you lived, or the old job, or whatever. And then that messy middle. Even when you have the beginning, it's not quite the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so respecting that, and I think what you've just said is great, which is if we really paid attention to it, we live in the messy middle. We just don't think so until something happens.
Right, right. What is your current hope for the impact
Mm.
of your opus that has produced this opus for others?
I mean, I hope that I can just inspire people to own their growth, and to understand that wherever they are, it is actually okay. You're just where you are, and
Mhm.
you can support yourself, you can develop yourself, and you will grow. And um, whoever you were, or whoever you will be, you can make that happen. And I think, I always thought I was just one. I thought I was who I was, right? And actually, I think probably now I'm much more like maybe how I was as a child, doing the kinds of things that I enjoyed as a child, more than I was in my career, but I think I had to go through that to get to here. So yeah, it's okay to, it's okay, and own your growth. And this is part of the new world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be the last time you do it.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process.
Yes. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you for your
time. Yes. I tell everyone where they can learn more about what you're doing and track this upcoming book as well.
Thank you. Yes, they can follow me at on LinkedIn is the best place to find me. For Live Your Opus, you can go to liveyouropus.com, and that links over to my website as well.
Janine is inspiring all of us to live our opus. Here are 5 key takeaways from this conversation. Number 1, achievement doesn't answer the question, am I enough? It often hides it. When your worth is tied to what you do, burnout becomes inevitable. Number 2, you can't skip the messy middle. Transition isn't failure, it's the necessary space between who you were and who you're becoming. Number 3, start where you are, even when you don't want to be there. Clarity doesn't come from escaping your reality, it comes from facing it. Number 4, success and well-being aren't opposites, they're partners. The goal isn't to lower ambition, it's to raise your energy to meet it. And number 5, you are your greatest work. Not your title, not your output, not your resume. You. These are words for us to take in, to sit in, and to embody. You are enough as you are for who you are. And all you need to do is create your unique opus. We are interested in what you think about this episode, so please feel free to leave us a comment at Dr. Dan Peters on Instagram or reply to any of our social posts. Thank you for listening, for sharing this with everyone and anyone you think will benefit, for subscribing, and for your 5-star reviews. As always, we have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Uplifting Folk by Awesome Music. Artwork by Kelly Dwyer. Follow us on social media at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, visit drdanpeters.com.